Recording in progress.
We haven't started yet. Hello, I'm Alexis DeJeanette from Axiom Space. Today, I am joined by leaders from Axiom Space, NASA, SpaceX, and the U.S. Space Force for the AX-3 press conference. Tomorrow at 5, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch the AX-3 crew aboard a Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Once docked, the AX-3 astronauts plan to spend up to 14 days aboard the space station, implementing a schedule full of microgravity research, technology demonstration, and outreach engagements. Today, we'll hear from Derek Hasman, Axiom Space's Chief of Mission Integration and Operations, Dana Weigel, the Deputy Manager of the International Space Station Program, Benji Reed, who is the Senior Director of Human Spaceflight Programs at SpaceX, and Brian Cizik, the Launch Weather Officer for the U.S. Space Force's 45th Weather Squadron. After we hear from our leaders, I will open the line to questions from the media. If you'd like to ask a question, please submit your questions or use the hand feature. And during these events, when you're called upon, please state your name, affiliation, and to whom you'd like to direct your question to. I will now turn it over to Derek Hasman from Axiom Space.
Thank you, Alexis. And I just want to say that it's my pleasure to be here this evening providing a mission. And I want to express my sincere thanks to those online for interest and support. Of course, what we're doing here is build on the previous successes that we've had on both the AX-1 and the AX-2 missions. And in each of these missions, Axiom, we're using these to build on our capabilities and our expertise, looking ahead to the operation of our commercial space station, which first module of which will launch in late 2026. For AX-3 in particular, it's unique in that it represents 3 countries, Italy, Turkey, and Sweden, along with the European Space Agency. And all these entities united for AX-3 to make it first all-European commercial astronaut mission to the ISS. We're very proud to build on the success that we've experienced before, and we look forward to all that we're going to accomplish AX-3. We have an incredibly dedicated crew, and I'll talk a little bit about them and their bios shortly. But I'll tell you that each crew member logged well above the required training hours to ensure safety and crew autonomy. Of course, our number one priority is always mission safety, but secondarily, we want to ensure that our crew is very comfortable and prepared with working on orbit with crew, and that once they arrive on orbit, that they feel independent and possible, with the goal of minimizing the impact on the ISS crew. In the case of the AX-3 crew, exceeded all the training requirements and incorporated additional trainings on safety loads, research, and science investigations, all of which ensure that they will positively contribute in their time on ISS. Today, you'll hear more about the details from SpaceX, but the crew did complete a dry run test where they ingress their Dragon spacecraft, and they walk through a step-by-step simulation of what they will experience tomorrow to ensure that the ground operations and the system are ready to support tomorrow's launch. And I can say that all systems are go, and we're ready for liftoff tomorrow. And just a brief intro on our X-3 crew members. The X-3 commander will be familiar with to most of you who have followed our work to date. Michael Lopez Alegria was also our commander on X-1. He's a record-breaking former NASA astronaut, and of course, he was the commander of the first private astronaut mission to the ISS. Extremely experienced and extremely competent, and he'll be a great leader for this mission. Our pilot, Walter Villaday, is a member of the Italian Air Force. Our mission specialist, Alper, is the first Turkish astronaut to go to space. Our second mission specialist, Marcus Want, is an ESA project astronaut representing Sweden. As I mentioned previously, the orbit mission is planned to be a total of 14 days. The next 3 crew will live and work on board the orbiting laboratory, conducting 30 different experiments and engagements. Marks a new era of opportunity for countries to join the international space community. It shifts the paradigm of how governments and space agencies access LEO for exploration and research in microgravity. And with that, I'll hand over to Dana.
Thank you very much, Derek, and thanks all of you for to hear a little more about the upcoming Axiom 3 flight to the International Space Station. This, of course, will be our 3rd private astronaut mission, and as was mentioned before, the launch is scheduled for tomorrow, January 17th at 5:11 p.m. Eastern Time from Kennedy Space Center. Not too long after that, we'll have docking to the Node 2 forward port, that's also called Harmony. That'll be January 19th at 5:15 a.m. Eastern Time with a hatch opening time planned for 7 a.m. Eastern Time shortly after docking. And then the crew will have some welcome remarks that they'll share around 7:35 a.m. Eastern Time. During the 2-week-long mission, the 4 Axiom crew members will complete more than 30 research experiments utilizing the unique microgravity environment on board the space station as well. And one of the studies will look at lightning activity on top of thunderstorm clouds. So a lot of interesting research going on board during that 2-week mission. Another exciting thing to share with you is International Space Station's celebration of a major milestone on December 6th, marking our 25th anniversary of space station operations. It's incredible to look back over the past 25 years and see how Space Station has grown and how its international partnerships and commercial partnerships have really flourished. As of today, 273 people from 21 different countries have visited the International Space Station, and we look forward to increasing those numbers in a couple of days. Let's see, as always on board Space Station, it's a very busy time for us after the M3 mission departs. Shortly afterwards, we'll see the Northrop Grumman 20 or NG-20 cargo mission scheduled to launch on January 29th. We'll have a crew rotation. Crew 8 will go up, Crew 7 will come down in February. Following that in March, the Soyuz crew will be rotated out. And we've also got a SpaceX cargo mission in that time frame. Then in the spring, we're looking forward to the launch of the first crewed Boeing test flight mission. It's a lot of hard work, coordination, and partnership to get to this point. I want to thank Axiom, SpaceX, and the NASA teams for laying the groundwork for a vibrant low Earth orbit economy with opportunities for many. We're ready and looking forward to having the Axiom 3 crew board station soon. And with that, I will hand it over to Benji.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. As always, it's an honor to be here. And it's really fantastic that we're already talking about the 3rd Axiom Space mission to travel to and from the International Space Station. It's really cool to think about how just another great example of commercializing LEO, low Earth orbit, and really taking us another step further into the space age. This will be our first human space flight mission of the year. Last year, we actually supported 5 different human space flight missions, both launch and return, in addition to flying tons of scientific research to and from the space station, and another 3 cargo missions last year as well. To date, we've flown 42 humans to orbit, and the Dragon fleet has more than 1,300 plus hours in orbit. This has been a huge boon to scientific research, to the opportunities to have more and more people going to space, and really for more countries becoming spacefaring countries, which is one of the things that I'm very excited about on this mission, Axiom 3. We also just completed our 300th successful Falcon launch over the weekend, which is actually very exciting for the SpaceX team and an incredible milestone, really, for the whole industry. It's an honor to fly again with Mike LA on his 2nd Dragon mission. especially excited for the first trips to space to the space station for Walter, Alper, and Marcus. We're looking forward to seeing all the great research and work that they're going to be doing while they're aboard the ISS. Over the past week, we've been getting ready, of course, to make sure that we're really ready to fly. We've talked about it before, and it's always worth repeating that this is a sacred honor that we have to be able to transport people to and from space safely, get them out to go do the work and the great things that they do, and then bring them home safely to their families. And so our team spend a lot of time preparing the vehicles for launch, completing multiple reviews and checking the data. This includes input from previous missions that provide valuable insight to the current and future missions that we're working on. As part of this, we've made 2 updates to the vehicle. I'll start with the first one, which actually has to do with parachutes on Dragon. It came from a finding of our analysis of the CRS-29 parachutes after that mission returned. Specifically, we were looking at the energy modulators. And I'll kind of take a minute here to explain what that means. The energy modulators are straps that connect the parachute bag to the parachute door. These straps are folded and stitched together such that when they pull apart, the connecting stitches intentionally break. Okay, and so this allows the straps to pull apart at a constant force. So again, you kind of have these straps that are connecting your main parachute to the parachute door, and you actually have them folded together so that they kind of provide this sort of shock absorption, if you will. But really, it's these stitches between these straps, between the folds of the straps, that as they intentionally break apart, they're taking away some of the energy, some of the force, and allows for kind of a constant force as the main parachutes are extracted. And this regulates the load that's applied to the main parachutes, which is very important. And this whole process is happening as the parachute door and the drogues are extracting the mains out of the vehicle during the handoff from the drogue chutes to the main chutes. So what we observed on CRS-29 was a behavior where some of these connecting stitches pulled through the parent material of the strap rather than just intentionally breaking like they're supposed to. So when they do that, they absorb a little less than the intended force and energy that we want them to. That means that you get a little bit more force on the main parachutes than you intend. The good news is that there are multiple energy modulators in parallel. So overall, the system performance was still acceptable, and we did have margin on CRS-29. On all of our Dragon missions, we recovered this hardware after splashdown. And particularly in CRS-29, what we noticed with this behavior is a little out of family from past missions. You always see some of it, a little bit of it. But in this case, it was a little bit more, a little out of family. And so we said, well, we need to dig into this further and, in abundance of caution, make sure we really understand what's happening, particularly for Axiom 3 coming up. While what we actually believe is a contributing factor to this behavior is that there is a twist. There can be a twist in the energy modulator when it's installed before deployment. So it's an installed state, in the vehicle before deployment. If there's a twist in the modulator, we think that may be a contributing factor to what causes this. So what we did is we actually got into the Axiom 3 vehicle. We opened up the parachute door and we untwisted. We found any energy modulators that appeared to have any kind of twist in them, and we untwisted those proactively just to make sure that that wouldn't contribute to it. We're also currently performing tests with NASA to confirm this theory and continuing to look closely at all the data that we have on parachutes, which is extensive. The second thing that we worked on as we got ready for this flight actually applies to both Dragon and Falcon. We reworked 2 of the 4 joints that connect the vehicles together. During this past weekend, the teams are doing their reviews, and I think it's always worth talking about the fact that we do these ton of reviews, right? We ask not only the people who work in their specific field or their specific job to review their data and their work, but we actually look to engineers to look across their disciplines and look from different viewpoints at all of the data. This is a very effective process that helps everybody, catch anything. It's kind of the look under every rock approach. And as we were going through this, we discovered that the final torques that were being used, the torquing of these connections between Dragon and Falcon were a little out of family. The actual tool that was being used didn't respond quite as expected. and we weren't getting consistent torque with the nominal values. Since safety is our top priority, we decided to rework this install. This caused us to shift our schedule slightly, but our teams really rallied. It was awesome, and they worked hard through the weekend to keep the launch on Wednesday. They safely completed all of the work and were able to roll out the vehicle last night, and they were able to raise Falcon 9 and Dragon early this morning. We've successfully completed our dress rehearsal with the crew of all the launch day activities, and that completed just a few hours ago. So we're happy to say that we're on track. We're ready. We'll be completing our launch readiness review tomorrow morning, and that will give us an opportunity to review all of the data and finalize everything for the flight. And of course, we're keeping an eye on the weather. I won't steal Brian's thunder on the weather, but he'll go right after me. Lastly, I'd like to just say that human spaceflight is core to SpaceX ultimate mission. As we all know, we are here to help make life multiplanetary while serving all of our customers and all of their space needs. Flying the crew safely is always our top priority. And we will only launch when we're ready. And as we continue through our reviews and our data, and even we go through the final count before launch, we'll be assessing and making sure we're always ready. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody today, and a big thank you from all of us here at SpaceX to Axiom, to NASA, to ESA, and Sweden, to Italy, and to Turkey for their trust and partnership and their ongoing close collaboration. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brian Cizik for the weather.
Okay, thank you very much, Benji. And yeah, my name is Brian Cizik. I'll be filling in for my colleague Arlena Moses, who's the lead launch weather officer for this mission. And besides being a little bit chilly by Florida standards tomorrow, tomorrow's weather is looking very good, very favorable here at KSC. For the launch, we had a cold front that pushed through the area today. It's currently pushing through East Central Florida. That's what brought a lot of the showers and storms that we saw in the area today. But much cooler and drier air is filtering in behind this cold front. So that will really help out in terms of clearing out a lot of this active weather that we've seen the last few days. We expect some very low, shallow clouds and maybe some very high, thin clouds, but neither of which will be a concern for our lightning launch commit criteria, which are designed to prevent against both natural and rocket trigger lightning. A rocket can actually trigger a lightning strike under the right conditions, but we're not expecting much of any concern for tomorrow here at the launch site. So less than 5% probability of violation of those weather rules. So greater than 95% chance of go for the weather rules here at the launch site. Then for the backup day, also looking pretty favorable. We do see the front that passed through and to our south tomorrow. That will begin to work its way a little bit back more northwards. We see a little bit more moisture returning, but overall conditions still look pretty favorable. Maybe just some very low, shallow, isolated showers, but really not too much of a concern. A little bit of a higher probability of violation. So we'll go with a 10% probability of violation for the backup day. And then of course, with an astronaut launch, we are monitoring the weather conditions in the ascent corridor. So essentially up the eastern seaboard off the Atlantic coast of the eastern US, all the way up through towards Ireland, actually. And so we are monitoring some winds being slightly elevated, but the teams working together, us and working together with SpaceX, will be monitoring those conditions as we head into the count tomorrow. So that's all I have for the weather, and I'll throw it back to Alexis.
Thank you all. Well, now I'll open the floor to reporter questions. As a reminder, if you have a question, please use the raise your hand feature. Submit your questions in the chat. If you are joining on your phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself when called on. To help keep it moving, remember to please state your name, affiliation, and to who you'd like to do a question to. We will begin with those online. All right, we'll start with Will Robinson-Smith.
Yes, hi. Thanks for taking our questions and good luck with the launch tomorrow. Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now. Question for Benji Reed. Recently, Elon Musk mentioned that y'all are in the process of certifying the boosters up to 40 future flights. But concerning Dragon, where are you and NASA in the process of certifying beyond 5 flights? And what's the booster tail number that's launching the mission tomorrow? Thank you.
Hi, sorry there, it took a second to get off of mute. In terms of the number of flights, we're actively working right now to ensure the Dragon is qualified for up to 15 flight reuse. And of course, as we say, we always fly when we're ready, and we also wouldn't fly vehicles that we didn't think were qualified. But we feel very good about getting towards that 15 flight reuse on Dragon. For I can't remember off the top of my head the tail number that we have for this vehicle, for the launch vehicle, but I can tell you it previously supported Axiom 2, which is very cool, and also a Euclid mission.
Thanks, Benji. All right, we'll now have Richard Tribo. And Richard, please ensure your line is unmuted.
Oh, look at that. Sorry about that. Hi, Richard Tribune, Orlando Sentinel. And you can hear me now? Yeah, okay. Looking down,
Clear, thank you.
great. Looking down the line for when the first modules of Axiom Station or first modules are attached to the ISS, what is the what's the target number of launches that you expect to bring up to the station then, assuming you'd still be working with SpaceX potentially, and that and then for Benji, what is the status on the next Crew Dragon module, which I believe is coming online sometime late this year, and when that might first fly? That's it. Thank you very much.
Yes, relative to the Axiom Station, the first module is scheduled to launch in the last quarter of 2026, and then we'll launch basically at a pace of one module a year. Our plan is to launch 2 habitation modules that will be which will be very similar to each other. They'll support each support through crew members, have all the basic needs of the crew members on orbit. We'll also launch a research module, of course, focused on payload and science, and then we'll launch a power and thermal module, which completes our on-orbit station design and result space station that's capable of operating autonomously once we undock this.
And Benji, I believe he had a second question.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of I think you're talking about the next Crew Dragon capsule. We currently have 3 cargo Dragons and 4 Crew Dragons in active service. We have a 5th Crew Dragon that's coming up, and you actually nailed it. It's going to be ready later this year. With our manifest, we're always keeping an eye on things, and I can't tell you right now for sure which one that will be assigned to, but when it's ready to fly, we'll get it into service.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, thank you, Joey Roulette.
Thanks. Question for Benji or Dana or Derek. I think, Benji, you said that the launch readiness review continues into tomorrow morning. Was it supposed to end tonight? Are there any kind of issues that are taking more time to look at? Sorry for the vacuum in the background. I'm essentially asking if there's any issues you guys are, carrying into the morning, and what those issues are. Thanks.
Thanks for the question. No, actually, just because we are maintaining the launch date, our teams worked so hard over the weekend to compress the schedule and do it very safely. We were able to get to doing our launch readiness review tomorrow morning. So it's not an ongoing, continuing thing. We are continuously reviewing data, and teams are continuously looking at all the information they have at hand. But we'll actually do the review tomorrow morning and confirm that everybody is good to go and proceed into the count. But right now we're on track.
Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. And then now I have all Ayers.
Hello, I believe this is going to be directed to Benji. Austin Ayers with WFQO. So, as we know about the weather being on everyone's mind, looking at the GFS, NAM, and whatnot, it appears that all of the crew missions and the previous Axiom manned missions, this could be one of the coldest launches for Crew Dragon. What is the launch criteria for the temperatures? Thank you.
That's a great question, and I can't tell you exactly what the criteria, because there's many, right? You know, when we look at the weather, I think you're particularly asking really what the temperatures are and what's the lowest temperature we can go to. I don't have that on top of my head, but it's certainly something that we look at, right? We want to ensure that we can launch in safely and with plenty of margin, regardless of temperature or humidity or precipitation and wind and thunder and lightning, all those kinds of good things. So we're keeping an eye on it, and we'll watch the weather closely and only launch when we're ready.
Thank you. And then now I'm on Stephen Clark.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can.
This is Stephen Clark from Ars Technica. Question for Benji. You talked about reworking the connectors between Falcon 9 and Dragon. What did the rework involve? Can you go in a little more detail? And are these bolts, clamps, pneumatic connections? What are they? And for Dana, if I could, can you give us an update on when you expect AX4 to fly, and are you planning on any longer duration private astronaut missions? I'm thinking 30 days or more in the near term.
Yeah, great. So these tension ties that basically connect the vehicles together. It's fundamentally a torquing type of mechanism, right? And so think of like a bolt, but you're tensioning these together, you're torquing these together. And what we did was we actually put new hardware in, right? We took it, we undid them, we had to re-rig Dragon, and to ensure that it was safe as we were undoing the ties between the vehicles. And then we put in new hardware out of an abundance of caution and retorqued them, and everything looked great after that.
Okay, let's see. The you had without AX4 and longer duration private astronaut missions. We haven't baselined a specific launch date. We are targeting the fall of next year of 24. So we'll put that flight after our next crew exchange coming down and going up. So we'll do it at some point after that, but we haven't picked a specific targeted date other than fall timeframe for AX4. In terms of longer duration missions, we haven't put out any other announcements about other private astronaut missions. We have internally looked at it. Interest trade and port ability on board space station, consumable threading in the flights around what we do. And so it is possible for us to do long duration flights, but then I can't do as many of those flights a year. And so we've got a trade that we'll look at for duration. For example, doing one flight time 14 minutes. And so we'll probably continue to stick with day mission given the traffic and all the other objectives on ISS, but going a bit longer is something that we've thought about.
Thanks, Anna. All right, we now have Irene, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. I have 3 questions. The first for Benji. How long are the straps, the parachute straps, and both the length and the width? Any other dimensions or any other details about what they look like? And also on the CRS 29, did you notice anything in the descent, uh, uh, the descent telemetry, or did you only learn about this in the post-flight inspections?
Hi, Irene. That's great questions. So the straps are it's a material. It's kind of a stiff material, and they're fairly long. I can't really. I want to say a few feet long for each fold, and a number of inches wide. So they're fairly beefy straps. They're very thick as well, as you would imagine, of course, for these parachute needs. And then there's multiple of them that are in parallel, that are positioned in parallel. In terms of your question about the CRS-29, this was really an observation of the material of these straps after we recovered them.
Thanks. And for Derek, does the future of the Axiom station depend on the company winning additional commercial LEO destinations contracts from NASA?
So Irene, the goals are really twofold on these private astronaut missions that we're conducting. One is to build the operation team of the expertise and experience and the knowledge base such that once we do transit to station operations, that we can do that seamlessly. And I feel very good about operations team is today relative to that. Of course, we're going to have lessons learned on each of these missions, and we're going to get better a little bit each mission. The other one of the other is to build and stimulate or economy that we've talked so much about. So our goal team is to continue to do these missions as long as NASA and ISS will have us. And our goal is to 2 of them a year till the 2026 timeframe when we launch our space.
Thanks. I was actually asking about the Axiom station, not the private astronaut missions. If the Axiom station, the Axiom hardware that's going to be attached to ISS and then later turn into a free flyer, does that whole program depend on additional funding from NASA?
Relative to the Axiom station, that we're self-funding as a company. We do have a contract with NASA, but the scope and the and I mean, it's fair to separate the private astronaut missions that we're doing today and in the near future from the Axiom station effort. If we do no more private astronaut missions, we would continue.
Thanks, Derek. Leo, please ensure your line is unmuted.
Hi, Alexis. I'm not sure you can hear me, but I hope you can.
Hear you.
Okay. I think I'm not sure my question might be for Brian Sizek, but I think maybe for Benji. I was just wondering because Brian mentioned Ireland. I'm with Irish television, so obviously I pay attention. And I was wondering about these additional risk criteria. At the moment, the risk criteria for the ascent, which obviously includes Ireland, is moderate. I'm just wondering, what are the limits? Ireland tomorrow, for instance, is, I think, about 27, 28 knots in the recovery area. And I just wondered, what is the limit?
Sure, I could start with that. Can't really go over any hard limits, and I should clarify that it's not necessarily just Ireland, but it's points all along the Atlantic from the launch pad in the general direction as the rocket is ascending and going into orbit. So looking at many different points along that ascent corridor, and it kind of all goes into an overall risk calculation that's weighted based on some of the different points and the likelihood, and of course the winds and waves in those specific locations. So happy to throw it over to Benji if he wants to add any more specifics.
No, you got it, Brian. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, over to you.
Hi, Jeff Faust of Space News. For Benji, I know there was some discussion in the months leading up to AX3 that you would launch this from Pad 40 using the new crew tower there. Obviously, you're launching from 39A. I'm curious when you think you would be ready to start doing cargo and Crew Dragon missions from Pad 40 using the new tower. And then second, a quick follow-up on an earlier question on reuse. I think the question was about reusing the Falcon boosters, getting concurrence with NASA to fly Crew Dragon missions on Falcon boosters that have flown more than 5 times, when you'll be ready to be able to do that. Thanks.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for the question. In terms of the boosters, right now we are currently, holding at 5 flight of boosters before for flying crew in general. As we continue to look at, when we feel comfortable expanding that envelope as well, then we'll continue to work that with all of our customers. And I have to apologize, Jeff. I forgot the first question.
The question is about when you'll be ready to start launching cargo and Crew Dragon missions from Pad 40 using the new tower that you've got set up there.
Oh, great. It's coming along really well. And if you've been out there or driven by there, you can tell it looks really great. And in fact, we've had a number of folks go through and both do tours and do a lot of inspections. I expect soon this year. I can't put an exact date or an exact mission on it, but it's getting really close.
All right. Thank you. All right, and now I'm going to call on Marcus Hervey.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm sorry if you can. Marcus Hervey, Entrepreneurs. Was wondering if you could provide more detail on the types of experiments that will be performed during the mission, please. Thank you.
One moment.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry.
You can hear you after that.
Yeah, great. Marcus Hervey, Entrepreneurs. I was wondering if you can detail the type of experiments that would be performed during the mission, please. Thank you.
The experiment will continue to monitor the effects of space flight on the human body, research and space to benefit treatments on Earth. Additionally, they're doing biological investigations in the development and treatment of certain cancers, neurological disorders. That's a strong focus for AX. And some of our new research partners will explore how to train space flight.
All right, and now we have Miles Duran. All right, and I believe Miles' hands dropped, so we will call on Richard. Another question?
No, I just but I did want to make a comment that some of the commenters are their answers are just not coming through. I can hear Benji just fine, but pretty much everyone else was a little stuttered.
Okay, thank you for working on troubleshooting this technical difficulty.
Okay.
I see Miles's hand is back up. Do you have a question for us online?
Hey, Alexis, can you hear me okay now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thanks. Quick follow-up for Benji. The connectors between Falcon 9 and Dragon. Can you just help us understand, were the bolts too loose or too tight? And can you just clarify what's the concern if the vehicle were to have flown in that condition? And then on the parachutes, the energy modulators, can you give me an idea of how many of them are there for the main chutes? And when you looked at the AX3 Dragon, how many did you find were twisted? Thanks.
Hey, thanks for the question. Yeah, in terms of the ties between Dragon and Falcon, bottom line is that the torques were a little out of family. And I don't have the data in front of me to tell you exactly in what way, but we just felt that we really needed to be cautious and redo two of those tension ties where we thought they were, where they were a little out of family with what we expected. I mean, and obviously you want to do this the right way, right? Because you've got a Dragon on top of a Falcon, you've got great big vehicles, and they need to be tied together really well until you don't want them to be, right? Until you want it to let go. And so it needs to do both jobs. It's got to hold on tight until it's time, and then it's got to let go. And so we look at all the data closely and make sure that they're going to do exactly those two jobs. In terms of I can't tell you how many what they needed to do to ensure that all of the energy modulators were in the right state or in an untwisted state. They went through and carefully inspected all of them, carefully handled all of them. Naturally, we always do lots of inspections and take lots of closeout photos. So it was good. I know that they left it in a good state, and we're ready to fly.
I believe that's all the questions that we have for today. I'm sorry for technical difficulties. If you space.com. Also, be sure to tomorrow to watch live coverage. The AX3 launch begins 3:15 Eastern Time, which will follow featuring review and ahead of and through the Axiom SpaceX and NASA. You can follow updates on the mission and on our website and on social media via the hashtag AX3. Thank you for your time, and let's